Check one, two, three. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. My next guest and I have been communicating back and forth since about 2021. And I'd finally like to welcome to the podcast, based out of Dublin, Ireland, Rob Moore.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having us on. It's been quite a while. We've been trying to put this together.
Yeah, glad we could finally put it together, for sure. So how has this past year been in the industry in Ireland?
So I predominantly work in commercials, and it's been busy. It's been a good year. Yeah, there's been quite a lot of stuff happening. I think it's possibly down to there's a lot of drama productions, a lot of big productions happening here that's kind of soaking up a lot of crew, which leaves a lot of the commercial stuff. They're crying out for people, so it's good. It comes in peaks and troughs. If you could have a month that's really, really busy, and then the next month could be quite slow. So you have to make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is here as well. Let's get to it and talk about what's in your audio bag.
So I actually bought a 633 about 12 years ago, and it's still in my bag. I really love it. I want to upgrade to an 833 or an 888, and I was on to Sound Devices recently because I wanted to buy one, but I have a feeling they're going to release something new soon enough, and I don't want to invest big in an older unit. So I'm just holding out. They're keeping that close to their chest. They're not letting me know if there's something on the way, but I think it's six years from the 633 to the 833, and I think we're in at around 5 or 6 years now. So I'm holding out for that. But I love the 633. It's brilliant. It does everything it needs to for me. With commercial work, you don't really have massive track numbers. For a lot of the stuff we do could be a family in a kitchen, you might have 4 lavs and a boom, so it's totally covers stuff like that. And I think if we need something bigger, we just hire out or borrow off a friend, something bigger like an 888 or something like that if needs be.
Okay. What wireless do you like to use?
I am on Electrosonics. I have, about 5 years ago, I bought the DSQD. It's fairly new at the time, and then the DBU transmitters. As I said, for most of the stuff I do is like 3-4 cast max, so it really covers that. And then I have a HMA for a wireless boom. So yeah, that covers all the stuff for me.
And what boom mics do you like?
I've always just used a 50, Sennheiser 50 for indoor. I just absolutely love it. Again, for mostly what I do a lot of kind of interview based stuff as well, because the kind of online commercial stuff that we do is the majority of it is like a sit down interview, and then they'll go and cut it with a load of B-roll. So most of it is kind of used as a voiceover, but they might cut back to the cast or the talent. So I think the 50 is just absolutely perfect for all of that stuff.
And the lav mics, what do you like?
We use DPA 6060s. Yeah, I've kind of had DPA all the time with 4060s, 4061s, 6060s. I just love them. They're just brilliant. Like if you have to throw it into a musical instrument or something, it still sounds great. They're small. You can hide them well. Loads of great accessories. They're just brilliant.
Now, for maybe a listener that's not familiar with the DPA, the different lavs they have, kind of break it down. Like when do you use which model?
Well, I have a 4061 there that I'd prefer to have more of them so I could match a scene if there was 4 people shouting or singing or whatever. a big dynamic range. But the one that comes out the most is I've thrown it into cars and stuff. I've put it in like exhausts. I've put it in to get like detail sounds of engines and stuff. And any kind of, we do some Red Bull drift racing and stuff. So we like kind of throw them in there, and that's great for that. It's just better for the higher kind of SPL. And the 6060s are kind of just to go to everyday mic we use on set. It just captures the dialogue perfect.
Okay. And what do you use for timecode sync boxes?
Timecode Tentacle. It's all I've ever used, and the latest versions, even they're just the battery and everything on them. I've no reason to try anything else. They're kind of bulletproof. I've used up to like 8 or 9 on a shoot, and it's just flawless.
And do you primarily work out of a bag, or do you have a cart?
So for years, I was out of the bag, mostly kind of run and gun. Over here, it's like if you're doing like online commercials, as I was saying earlier, doing like B-roll and an interview, something like that, they're kind of lower budget stuff. You would only get the budget for yourself to turn up with a bag and a boom. I did that for a long time. And then a lot of the production companies I was working with kind of upscaled into TV. So once you get into that bracket, you've got, they'll give you a boom up, and, you know, I could be at the cart and mixing. And then actually my brother, Kev, he's actually 16 years younger than me, but he's actually my boom up for most stuff. So we work together, which is great. It's like nice little family thing. And yeah, so he could boom that. Any TV commercials, he's usually on boom, and any kind of online stuff is like myself or himself will turn up for the job.
Okay. Now you have is it soundspeed.ie website?
Yes, Soundspeed, soundspeed.ie, that's it. It's just, so basically there's myself, my brother, one of my best friends, Stephen Power. I've known him since 3. He's also a sound recordist. And then my brother's best friend, Shane O'Connell, he's been coming out with us for the last like 2 or 3 years. So there's 4 of us in the group, and we just cover everything from TV commercials, documentaries, kind of anything really. But I guess the one thing we don't really do is drama. We do some, like I'd like to put myself forward for maybe a feature every year or second year to keep me on my toes. But it's mostly commercial stuff, you know, that's our bread and butter. And I came to a crossroads, I think, when I had the kids, probably like 9 years ago, that it was drama and invest all my time into that and not possibly be around as much, or kind of stick in the commercial avenue. And I stuck to the commercials because I just had a better work-life balance. It was like some days I'm at home and I can bring the kids to school. It's like stay-at-home dad vibes. And then I pick them up from school, but then I could be on a commercial for the next 2 days, and then I'd have a day off, and then I could do 3 days and then a day off. So, and then some weeks you're just flat out, you're doing it like 5-6 days a week, and then the next week. So it's I like the downtime. I love my fishing. So if I'm not sound mixing, I'm fishing. And if I'm not doing that, I'm dropping the kids to school.
I like that. Yeah, it is trying to find that work-life balance. And I did the same thing when my daughters were younger. And it really is. It's nice to be the father that's present if possible, you know?
Yeah, well, you're never going to get them years back. But saying that, I do like to do drama because you get a lot more out of it. You know, I could do a commercial. I've done 5 days on a commercial, and it's come out and there's just been music on it. And I'm thinking, it's not very, very rewarding. Okay, it's a paycheck, but I've done films where it's just been like you can kind of get immersed in it and trying to capture the audio as best you can and get fully immersed. And it's so rewarding when you walk out of like a premiere and you've heard it on the big screen. It's like, it's a totally different buzz than seeing the ad on TV that has music over it that they didn't use any, you know. So it's they were saying that there is some commercials that were very good and challenging, but this, you know, you get what I'm saying. It's like some is a paycheck and some is a art form.
Yeah, sometimes, you record all this dialogue on set for the commercial, and then the commercial comes out and it's an announcer, a voiceover track. You're like, what?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, a lot of them are voiceovers, you know, and then you might have a little bit of, you know, the atmos on set, like someone picking up a set of keys and closing a car door, and it's like, is that as good as, somebody coming in a scene and holding up a bank and you've got all your dialogue? It's just not the same, but at the same time, it's a trade-off.
Right. Well, let's talk about some projects you've been working on. And let's see, back in September, you worked on the Pittsburgh Steelers game day in Dublin. So what all did you do?
Yeah, so that's funny. The Steelers have they have a big background with Ireland. They're the guy who set up the Steelers is like they're from Irish descent. So Dan Rooney is the Rooney family. So they've been coming back here to do like some kicking clinics and things like this throughout the years and pick out because apparently Ireland is a really good kicking country because American sports aren't predominantly kicking sports. So they come over and it's kind of scout all the GAA players and rugby players who are kicking. So they've done these kicking clinics, and I ended up on a shoot one day and worked with them, and then they've just contacted me directly. Then they're like, we're coming over, we're doing this big game, would you be able to do sound on this? We ended up doing a documentary about the links to Ireland, and then the game week, I think I was out 7 days with them, just going around visiting schools with the Rooneys. And then on the game day, they asked me, would I be up for coming along to do the sideline? I said, oh yeah, that'll be grand. But then I thought, hang on, what's involved in that? And I started looking it up online, and I just seen like fully extended boom poles for like 5 hours. I was thinking, oh, what have I got myself in for? This is got to be a disaster. So I turned up on the day, and the guys are so nice. They're really, really nice. And they just said, bring my own mixer and bring a light pole. But the only thing I have there is a Panamic Maxi, and it's not internally coiled or anything like that. So I had the cable everywhere. But they said all the radio packs had to be encrypted. So they gave me a hop, and I put that in my bag, and they gave me an SD card. So I recorded to that, sent them the encrypted signal to their camera, and just pretty much chased their camera guy around for the whole match. And he'd say 66, and we'd fully extend the boom pole over and try and catch 66 coming off the pitch and chatting to the rest of his team as they were, celebrating or whatever. But I think the biggest issue for me was that it was fine doing the booming. You got little breaks in between. It was really interesting. But it was the camera. I don't know what they call it. It's like a camera cart that comes up and down the sideline, and it's the broadcast cameras. And the guy said to me, if you're collapsing your boom pole, make sure you do it straight and not upright, because if the boom pole is upright and goes in the way of the cameras for the broadcast, first strike is a telling off. Second strike is a £250,000 fine to the team for hampering the view of the nation, I guess. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that was pretty much in the back of my mind for the whole thing. I was like, oh my God, where's the cameras? That was crazy. But the whole experience was amazing. I really loved it. Yeah, it's great crack.
Yeah, we've interviewed a couple guys that have done a lot of NFL stuff, and yeah, it's always seems like it's a unique experience being out there on the sidelines.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I don't know enough about it, and I took a picture, and the guys were all sitting in the dugout, and all their numbers were facing me. The guy goes, you just pictured one of the best defenses ever seen. I had no idea. I just see these guys. I would walk by them on the street, I wouldn't know who they were, but if I did that with football here, I'd know them all. It's just so funny. Yeah. There's a sport that is so big, but yet know nothing about.
Wow. You also did a project at Bono's house from U2.
Yeah. So, done a few jobs with Bono. So a friend of mine, camera guy Albert, seemed to get a bit of an in with the U2 crowd. And he rang me one day. He was like, are you up for coming up? Doing a couple of pieces to camera, that kind of stuff. We've been up a few times now. He's actually probably like 5 minutes from where I am now, my parents' house. But so we'd go up and do like just some simple pieces to camera. Just, messages, things for like award ceremonies that like he wouldn't be able to get to. He'd have something to go on the screen, stuff like that. I can't say anymore, but the one time, because this went out to the public, it was we went up and they wanted to do a karaoke version of Space Oddity, David Bowie, so Bono and the Edge.
Yeah.
And we were heading up, and then this thing started to grow legs quickly. They were ringing me saying, okay, we're actually going to bring in a whole LED wall. We were like, okay, so what's happening? Like, okay, he's going to float in space and sing it. All this stuff. It was just like, I thought we were having a joke karaoke thing, you know? So we got up there, and then all his recording guys were there, and I was thinking, right, I just need to get this one line of dialogue, and then they're going to look after all the sound. This is going to be easy. So when we got there, they didn't want cables on set because they were floating in space. So they just said, would you have him mic'd up? Why don't you record him singing and send it into us in the next room? And all I had was one hidden 60-60 on his underneath his jacket. I was like, if that rustles or anything, I'm gone. But luckily enough, we did like 5 takes, and it was brilliant. Like it obviously he has a great voice, and the microphone worked perfectly. It was absolutely amazing. So we sent that through, and the whole edit, actually, we came back up again to his house. He was like, guys, it was really good. That actually went out on Times Square, and we were like, oh my God, that's amazing. So yeah, just a random day in the world of a sound recordist. You know, I didn't think I'd be recording Bono singing, especially a David Bowie track, you know.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You did a Red Bull wingsuit shoot?
Yeah, so geez, what was it? It was about a year, maybe a year and a half or something. Red Bull always pull off these like cool stunts, you know. They're kind of edgy marketing. So there's a spot in Dublin, Pool Beg. There's like 2 chimneys. It's kind of iconic. As you're flying into Dublin, you'd see it. So they decided to do the wingsuit guys I think that's what they're called, wingsuit. And they jump out of a helicopter and they fly through these 2 chimneys. And it was just massive big publicity stunt. Didn't go down well because they didn't ask for permission, I don't think. But it was all part of it, you know. No, what do they say? No publicity is bad publicity. But yeah, so I knew I was on the job, and I was like, okay, we're going to get some interviews before and after, and that'll be it. And I think there was like 8 cameras, 4 drones, cameras everywhere. I think the day before I was away down the country on a job, and I got a message from the director or producer asking me how I was going to record the dialogue. And I said, what dialogue? And they said, while they're flying. Oh. And I was like, oh God. How do you even go about that? So I did a bit of research. I think it was like 200 kilometers an hour these guys fly at. So I was like, how are we even going to do that? So I was made aware that they have in-helmet talkback systems, so they can talk to each other, but there's no output. So there's no way of tapping into it, but they can talk. I think they use them for motorbikes and stuff like that. So this is all in their helmet. So we said, if they can talk and hear each other, we have a fighting chance. So we got a couple of Tentacle Track E recorders, and we put them, they had a little zip on their chest. So we put the pack in that, ran the cable up into the helmet, put a Bumblebee wind covers, put that over the DPAs, and it was like right in front of their mouth. And then we just put the gain way down as low as possible. This was a shot in the dark because they were doing, I think, 2 jumps, and we couldn't listen live. So we were like, right, let's get them on all the helmets and see what we get. And after they did the first jump, they go straight back in the helicopter and go back up and do another one. I think they did 3 in the end. So it was totally after we were wrapped, and I was just listening back on these recorders, and I could hear perfect. It was absolutely perfect. So we had timecode synced all the cameras that were around. So as well, the turnaround on this thing was like the whole crew was like shuttle bus up to the production house, and it was all being edited to go out later that day. So it was just so important to have it all locked in, everything time code. So those trackies totally saved us. Like there was no other way of doing it. Maybe you could have recorded a couple of wild lines, and you could have dubbed it in because you can't see them with, you know, they're flying, but you could actually hear the flapping of the wingsuit when they jumped out. And once I heard that, I said, oh, when he speaks, it's going to be crystal clear. And he said something. He said, oh yeah, Dublin. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. Brilliant. Mission accomplished.
Oh, that's it. And those are 32-bit float, right?
Yeah. That was another thing in our favor, because they're you know, like if you're going down in a wingsuit, you're not whispering. You're shouting, and it's so we got some clean audio anyway.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I have a friend, he bought some trackies and he put it in on his mixer, just on the mix track. And he runs that as a backup. One time, I think he had like a little dropout in the middle of somebody's dialogue, just like a couple frames. But he was able to go back and pull from the mix from that little track E recording. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great when people come up with these little solutions and ideas for little bits of kit that might be just sitting around.
Yeah. Now, those have the micro SD card, right?
Yeah, they're micro SD, yeah.
When you go to transfer, do you transfer that first for them, or do you just put it in an adapter and give it to them to transfer?
That was the only time I've used them. So I actually just took out the cards, handed them over. There was like a DIT there that was just collecting cards.
Okay.
And just passed them over, and they were gone, like straight into the edit. It was just so important to get it so fast.
Okay. All right. I'm looking here. You had a feature film called Double Blind.
Yeah, so Double Blind. As I said before, I don't do much drama. And it was a friend of mine, Simon, his production company, were doing this. He was like, oh, we'd love to have you on board. So I said I agreed, because there was a couple of... I knew all the crew. I knew the DOP, Narian Van Meel. He's great, good friend of mine. We kind of came up through the ranks together, I knew it would be a crew that I could work with and kind of... my voice be heard, we'd be able to kind of work together as a good crew. But it was only, I think, like a week before the film, I went down to see the location. It was all set in a lockdown facility. It was like drug trials, and they get locked in this facility. So you can imagine this place was like an echo chamber. We measured it out, and it's the perfect storm for reverb. It was all tiled, and the walls were like hard concrete, and I think the dimensions were, the height was 3 times the width, and the width was 3 times the length, or the length was 3 times the width, which is the perfect equation for hell, for audio hell. So you could hear your own feet walking through. When you walked in, I was like, oh no, guys, is this where we're shooting? And they were like, yeah, we've this locked in. Director pretty much said, or the producer said, how fucked are we? And I said, oh, lads, like this is really, really echoey, There's a lot of reverb in here. And they were like, oh, we have quite a budget put aside for ADR. I was like, guys, the whole film is in here. It's like, how much money? And obviously you hate to hear that if you're a sound mixer being brought in and they're like, don't worry, like even if you do a crap job, we're going to replace it all. It's not really what you want to hear. So yeah, we went in, shot the film, and that week leading up, we ended up like ringing a load of, it wasn't in Dublin, it was about a 2-hour drive out. So we were staying out of Dublin, a place called Limerick, and we found a theatre company that does all mobile staging and stuff like that. And I got every black drape and stand off them, and we brought them up. We even filled these massive 1 meter balloons with air and put them on bamboo sticks just to put up against any kind of corner or like spot where the sound was rebounding. And basically, as I said, Narian was great, because I said, can we put black drapes up? We basically cordoned off as much of the set that you couldn't see on camera with these huge drapes. And we got the 6060s right in. They had a little fold, because they were all in these uniforms for the trial that they were on. The costume was perfect for hiding a 6060 right in the sweet spot. So between the work with the drapes, the mic placement, and my brother Kev was booming. He done a great job on that. But we got it in the end, and then we're kind of waiting after. We're like, oh, I hope, because there's a lot of people dying and screaming and getting burned alive and all this. So like it was a lot of high levels of everything there. So we were thinking, God, they're probably going to have to ADR like some of this stuff. And so I got an email probably like 3 months later from Post, and they were like, oh, what mics did you use? Because we need to know for ADR. And I was like, oh, do you have much to do? And he said, actually, no, none for technical reasons. It's all for alt lines off screen or anything like that. We were like, oh my God. And they actually said the tracks were really good. So I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely delighted, because it's kind of when you come away from a project, you want to do your best for everyone. Particularly one of the cast turned around to me and I asked him, he was whispering, and then he went into a rage, and he just started screaming, and we just couldn't get it. And it was low budget stuff. They're trying to railroad through these scenes. We're running out of time. And I just said, can we put another mic pack on you? So we had one recording really loud and one recording really low. And he said, he just put his hands in the air and said, go for it, once I don't have to ADR this, because it was quite a big emotional scene. So we said, great, yeah, let's throw it on. And we got it. And it was just to know that he didn't have to go in and do that and redo that whole scene in a booth. It would have been nearly impossible. You would have never have got the performance from him, you know. So he was thankful. I know him. I've met him a couple of times since. We spoke about it. But that's it's just knowing that you got it good enough for everyone involved. And we did our bit to, but it actually got nominated for an IFTA award for Best Sound then in 2023, which was great. That was a good night out. We lost to Barbie, unfortunately.
Oh.
So yeah, Barbie beat us. But look, it was nice to be there.
That's great. Yeah, I think there's no better like satisfaction than hearing from post that actually it was really good. And I love that when you get an editor or somebody saying, man, your audio was great. You had so many, great tracks for me to use. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, it's good. We get it. I remember a guy messaged me before. He was like, oh my God, I've never seen such amount of notes in the sound report. I'd just be so detailed on like wild track and exactly what it is. And just people are like, it's so helpful. But sometimes when you're doing it, you're like, is anyone even looking at this stuff? But it's just that one call or email makes it worthwhile, you know?
Yeah. Tell me about these airbags that you were putting in the corners. What are those?
No, they're not film related or anything. It's basically it's an idea I came up with. So it's like a normal balloon, but I found on Amazon you could get like big balloons, and when they're blown up, they're like a meter wide, you know. So what I did is I blew up. I actually have a video I made of me doing it in kind of a hyperlapse or whatever. So I blew them up with a pump, so they're like a meter each balloon, and then I taped them onto a bamboo stick that was a few bamboo sticks connected together. So I could just literally pick up this like 4 or 5 giant balloon coil thing and just hold it up against a wall. So it was like right in the corner up into the, so it just killed the reflections in such an echoey room. Yeah. So we had a few of them knocking around the set. People were like, what the hell is that? But yeah, anything, every little percentage just counts, you know. If you could just get a couple of drapes in, and like the camera guys were loving it because it was like a neg fill, you know. So we were like getting them like right within inches of the cast, and it just totally saved us with sound. It helped the camera. It was just a proper team effort, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's cool. You did something for Apple with Coldplay.
Yeah, so I've done a couple of Apple things, and this one was good crack, very nervy, because I know most people who work in sound, and you know when you've got someone like Coldplay coming along, there's a whole circus and the whole thing that comes with it that just makes things more awkward than it should be. So we did a day in the Crow Park. They were doing their tour, and they were here for a few nights. We were on the stage, interviews with different band members, but the last day was with Chris Martin, and we were like out and about in South County, Dublin, doing some interviews. But it was just so crazy because we got him mic'd up and stuff, but he decided he wanted to walk out on the rocks to do the interview with Zane Lowe. So I was like, okay, he's going on the rocks. And I don't know if I said it before, but I'm big into my fishing, and I spend a lot of time on the rocks. So once I seen him going out there, I was like, I've got this. This is grand. So I just kind of kept out a shot, and I was following them out onto these rocks, and I looked back, and all the camera guys were like with like those Ronin chicken head cameras, you know, those things. They're new enough. They're like a DJI, but anyway, they're bigger than an Osmo. And I I just looked back and everybody was stuck. Nobody was going out on these rocks with the cameras, you know. I think there was some Alexas in there as well. I think it was like 6 cameras roving around a 2-person interview. And it's like, oh my God, just at the drop of a hat, somebody can change the plan and nobody knows what to do. So I think with the edit, I think it was covered, it was fine, but it was just kind of, you just don't know. You can't tell people they can't do that, you know. He wanted to go out there and that's where the interview was happening, but I was getting, even like when they sat down, I was getting like these little dropouts on the radio pack, and I think it was that the aerial was like touching off his skin or something like that. So it was just like the whole hour I was like, don't move. But you know, you couldn't get a boom in because you had 6 cameras shooting, and you're just relying on one sound source. But I was good. It was entertaining. It was a good shoot. Got great guys to work with. Loved working with all of them.
Was it windy out there?
Actually, yeah, that was probably one of the main nervy points, because so we decided the guys for Apple always want the mics exposed because it's mostly going out as a podcast rather than a video. So they say audio is primary. So they want the microphones to be exposed, so not buried at all, but to match them to the clothing. So you're turning up with like, you know, 5 different colors of like wind covers. But the only ones I find work is the Bumblebee. They're the big ones that you use for outdoor, you know, the exposed ones. And they've the 2 little rope things that you pull to tighten it in. So they look big, you know. So when I was putting it on, Chris Martin goes, "Oh, I don't know about that." I was like, "Well, it's gonna get windy." And he goes, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, I trust you." And I was like, it was just that moment I knew he was going to play ball. So I put it on and we got down, and it was a light breeze, but I had looked at my weather apps and it was to get windy. So about 20 minutes into the interview, it started to really blow up, and you could see everyone kind of looking at me. And actually, he stopped the interview and he said, "Are you okay?" He's just a really nice guy. He was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I said, "That's why we put the big fur on you." And he was just laughing, you know. So yeah, we got through it. It was down to the gear, the Bumblebee stuff. Like it gives a little bit of separation to the mic capsule, which I think helps when the wind picks up. If the capsule is touching the fur, I think you're getting that rumble. But if there's a little bit of separation, I wouldn't use anything else for that.
Nice. Yeah, that's interesting because, you know, how many clients ask you to leave the mic exposed, you know?
I know. I never do it. I think only ever for that. We did another one, same gang for Inhaler, which is actually Bono's son's band. And it was the same. That was the first one we done. They were like, "Oh, can you have matching clothes, mics?" And there's 4 or 5 of them in the band. So we were like, "Oh my God, how many different variations? Like, what if all 5 turn up in brown leather jackets? We need brown mics, brown clips, brown foam." But then if, you know, we just had so many different combinations, but you got to have it. If that's what they want, that's what they get.
Yeah, man. So I see also here you did a documentary called Home in Iraq.
Oh yeah, we went over to we shot a documentary called Home. It was about a refugee from Iraq, from Kurdistan, called Zach Maradi. And he came to Ireland when I think he was like 6 or 7 or 8 maybe, and he didn't have a word of English, and he settled down and got into the GAA. I don't know do you know what the GAA is? It's like the Irish football, and we've hurling, but it's the traditional Irish sport. And he got into it. He became a bit of a name in that sport, and he's gone on to win stuff. And it was a documentary about him going back to visit where he came from. And he came from it was in Kurdistan anyway, but we went back to revisit the refugee camps that he was. I think he was born into the refugee camps, and then he was there for his life up until he left. His parents were in there for like 21 years. It was a real eye opener of a trip, you know. Like, you're going into these refugee camps, and it's like 3rd world countries, you know. These kids don't have shoes or socks, and it's just it's awful to see that that's still there in this day and age. But we actually, like, in between takes, I was playing marbles with the kids on the street. And it was just mind blowing experience. But we were going around interviewing like politicians and different people, and like there was one day we went into a compound with a guy. I think he was like I'm not sure if he was a part of a political party or something, but he had 300 bodyguards. Like it was insane. We had I think it was 5 or 6 jeeps with fully armed guards in each jeep bringing us around. It was like, I mean, it was like something out of a film, you know. It really was. It was like something out of a war film driving around there. But like where we were in Kurdistan is really safe now. You know, we did have the protection, but you don't go further south. I think it's very risky as a Westerner, but like where we were is considered safe territory. But it's lovely country. Like there's some of the places, some of the lakes and the mountains and stuff we went up to was just absolutely unbelievable.
Mm. Yeah, because you only see what's on the news usually, and so yeah, I was wondering what it's like to be in Iraq like that. Wow.
Yeah, well that's it. Yeah, like I didn't think it was going to be like this at all. Like you see on the news, like you would have seen like, you know, the Iraq War. You just see deserts with tanks and army everywhere. Like this was like, there was a place called, I think it was like Dukan, and it was unbelievable. Like we've got nice scenery here in Ireland with lakes and mountain stuff, but this was something else, you know.
Wow, man. Well, when did you decide to finally get into sound?
Well, I think for me, it was, I think like a lot of people, it's kind of nearly like a happy accident for location sound. Like I don't think many people go out to study location sound. I left school and I was always into music. My dad DJ'd for years, and he's like a walking jukebox. So it's kind of like credit to him for getting me involved in all the music and the sound and everything. So I went on to promote nightclubs. I DJ'd for years, way before it was cool. We had there was no MP3 sync buttons. We had vinyl, proper records and mixers and stuff. We were old school, but we used to do like raves, all that kind of stuff, parties, nightclubs. And then after that, I did sound engineering in college, and it was actually my uncle was a stills photographer on films, and he's passed away now. God bless him. Tom Collins was his name, and he recommended to me to go out with some of his old sound mixer friends, you know. So he put a few things in place. I got out to shadow some of the guys, which was great. For me, it was just like, instead of mixing music, it was mixing voices. So it was easy to jump in and kind of get the gear and get going. And just like, I mean, there's another guy, Noel Quinn. He was he's like a real veteran boom op in Ireland. He's retired now, but there's still stories of him turning up on sets, you know. You just can't let it go. But yeah, he's amazing. He took so much time to help me. I did like a crash course in a place in the city with him. It was like a weekend thing about location sound gear. But after that, he was like, "Oh, there's a short film they need a guy to do. Would you do it?" I was like, "Oh, no, I don't know. Like, it's a bit early for me to do it." And he just had me the gear, and I went off and did it. And it's just people like him that just help you and push you on, you know. So everything just snowballed. Then it was just like every short film I could do, I would say yes. Like, that's my biggest problem. I can't say no. If somebody rings me now and they're like, "We're filming in the morning, would you do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, grand." I just have to, I can't turn it down. So yeah, just do as much as you can and just build it up, build the contacts, keep going.
Yeah. You know, I started off in the studio doing studio recording and music. And, you know, at the time I didn't even think so much about location sound, but then later I was like, why didn't I think about this more? You know, this is like, I really love being out here, you know?
Yeah, well, it's totally not on the radar in any of the courses. I did sound engineering for 2 years, and not once did they mention location sound, a shotgun mic, or anything like that. It's just not a thing that people even when my uncle said it to me, it was like, what, sound for film? Jesus, like I would have never even known what a sound card looked like. You know, it's crazy that it's such a hidden career, you know?
Yeah, man. Well, what's been your all-time favorite project that you've ever worked on?
The Coldplay one was good because they gave us tickets to their private box after. Yeah, they said that we've got tickets for the guests of Coldplay box. So we went to that. That was great. That was kind of like, oh yeah, we were doing all these interviews with these guys who are now right there performing to like 80,000 people. Now we can see why they're such a huge super group or whatever. That was good. Let me see, anything else? I've done loads of cool stuff. Like over the years, you just get thrown into so many different areas. Like we did a documentary years ago, 2016, on John Hume, who was a pivotal role in the peace process in Ireland, between, Northern Ireland, all the troubles that happened in the 80s and stuff. And he won the Nobel Peace Prize. I remember staying over in his holiday home in Northern Ireland, and they brought in the peace process plate or whatever it was. It was just mind blowing to be in the same room as him, his wife, and it was just like he was such a pivotal role in Irish history. Just something like that. At the time, you don't really appreciate it, but when you look back, you're like, oh my God, like that, like anyone into history would be like, you got to do that. That's unfortunately, John had severe onset dementia. So we weren't actually allowed to record him talking, but everyone around him we could record. They didn't want him to be remembered that way. They wanted him to be remembered. So we went out to all these old beaches where they had protests with the army and stuff. It's just, like that stuff I look back on, I'm like kind of pinch myself. It's like, yeah. And the younger generation probably like wouldn't even know who that is. Like his name. It's like, but yeah, anyone older will definitely know who he is. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm not really like a big like fanboy, that just freaks out when you see stars and stuff. But it is kind of fun when you're in the room. You're in the room in this place and you're looking around. This is, I don't know. I'm always like this is cool.
Yeah, it's more of a reaction from friends and family and stuff. They're like, you are what? You are in Bono's gaff. You're just like, yeah, like you kind of you get used to it. Like you have to. You can't be. The only thing I said to any of the guys I work with is I don't usually get starstruck. But if they put me on a Liverpool football team shoot, I'd probably I wouldn't know where to look. I'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'd proper fanboy buzz, I'd say. So, yeah, luckily I haven't gone on any of them yet.
Yeah, there weren't any players, but I did a couple years ago. I did like a little shoot for Arsenal here in the U.S. and it was, they were releasing their travel jersey and they had a local social media influencer that was a big fan and I guess was always wearing Arsenal shirts when he did some of his posts online. And we did a little Arsenal thing, but that was fun. Just like, cause we had this, I forget what it was, like a 57 Chevy that they put a big camera and mounted it on the hood and he drove around town and was talking in the car and waving to people. But anyway, that was kind of a fun project. But it's always, every project to me is unique and different, and sometimes it's very similar and sometimes it's different, but sometimes just it's cool, it's fun to do. That's why that's why I like to do it.
Yeah, we've like, yeah, it's some of the stuff the kids would love as well. We did a 8-day commercial recently with a guy who's dressed up as an old insurance document. We did some last year and my kids came to set and they met him, and it's an amazing costume, and it's just like mind blowing for the kids because it's always on the TV. But he now does these little like videos to my kids that I bring home and play it on. They're just like they're totally blown away by this like costume. Whereas, I could bring them home like a super celebrity and it wouldn't faze them, but it's the costume they love, So it's those little things you can bring back. We also did there's a big show here called the Late Late Show, and every Christmas they do the toy show, which is like super. It's like a ritual for Irish families to all sit around and watch the toy show. We did the ad for it there recently, so it actually only came out like yesterday or the day before, but just like my kids are like, oh my God, the toy show ad, and you worked on it, it's great to see the excitement,
That's great. Well, I always try to ask, like, you don't have to mention any names, but what's your all-time worst on-set experience?
There's been a few. I'd say my worst one was probably when there's just nothing you can really do to fix the sound. And everyone's like, what can we do? And you're like, there's literally, we've tried everything and it's just out of your hands. I had this, it was a commemoration for 1916 where there was a load of people killed in the GAA grounds, the big GAA grounds here. And it was a memorial thing. So they had 16, I think it was 16 people were killed. So they had an actor act out that person's life just before they were shot. So we had, it was like a 10-minute monologue from an actor straight to camera that was edited for live. So they were editing this as we were recording with 3 cameras, wide, tight and a mid. So we couldn't really get booms or anything in there. And we had 16 of those to do over the course of 2 days. But a storm had come in and these guys were standing on top of like this football stadium, out in the, like way up in the middle of the wind. And they were like, okay, action. And we had only had 2 goes at these and they were 10 minutes long and we only had a lav. And the wind was like, the guy's hat blew off. That's how windy it was. We tried everything. I think what I ended up doing was I took all the wind covers off the lavs because nothing was working. And I just put it in a foamy and I pointed it in towards the guy's chest. So there was no way the wind could get it. It was a little bit more muffled, but we got it. But we had to wait 10 minutes of him line by line with our fingers crossed, hoping that we'd get it. And we did, but I mean, even the director was looking at me and he came over after and said, that took 10 years off my life. That was just, there's not a lot you can do, but you can only do your best. And we got it, but it was just, I'd rather never do that again.
Yeah, sometimes those environmental conditions, it's like, the shoot itself is fine, but it's just, you are like, I don't know what else to do with this mic, I can't keep it quiet,
Yeah, a friend of mine once said, he said, we're fucking good, but we're not magicians. It's true, like people are like, why is the sound not good? Because it just always is good. It's assumed that it just works, but it doesn't. It's us working hard in the background to make it sound that good.
Yeah, man. Well, you have also been working very hard over the past few years creating the Crew Clothing film industry clothing brand. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so Michael, it's been a long road. Actually started probably in 2021, just as COVID hit, and then that just took nearly 2 years off my plans. But yeah, so Crew Clothing, it was an idea because as I said before, I was big into my fishing, and I have lots of good gear for being out in the outdoors, staying dry, staying warm, stuff like that. But it was, I noticed on set, it never worked because it was either too heavy or it was, too warm, all this kind of stuff. And then I noticed a lot of the other crew around me were getting like really wet or they were always freezing. I was like, God, there's a market here for something that's just catered towards filmmakers. Something like a jacket that was for all seasons, modular, loads of bells and whistles, features and stuff to accommodate film crew. So yeah, it was actually a bit of a lucky road because I was chatting to a director and he said, why don't you talk to the NCAD, which is a local National College of Art and Design. So we got in contact with the NCAD college who helped us get grants towards helping fund the past pupils to design the product. Then we got a pattern maker to like make up the sizes. Then we got to put into like a program that's like a tech pack. And we went out and we got that made. I tried China, Turkey, a few different places, but ended up back getting the best quality build was China. So we've now got a crew jacket that's fully modular, that's got loads of features. We've got things like a hood. I found with headphones, you probably notice yourself that when you pull up your hood and you look left or right, they just get dragged off your ears and it's just really hard to manage. So we did like an oversized hood that you can tie in so it fits your headphones, or for anyone on set, a director or script supervisor, anyone who needs cans. Then there's other features like a little clip in the hood to put in your walkie-talkie microphone. It keeps it kind of protected from the elements. We've it's modular. It's like a thermal layer that you can zip out, so you can wear that just on its own, or you can wear the rain waterproof layer on its own in the summer. So it's like fully modular. Yeah, so it took a while, but we're up and running and had some great people because we work in the industry of advertising. So we got some great guys involved making the ad. Friend of mine, James Collins, shot it, and yeah, loads of them jumped in and made some really cool stuff. But yeah, it's up and running now. It's at www.crewclothing.com, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with this jacket, test the water. And we've got waterproof pants lined up. We've got some keep warms, heated keep warms, possibly some heated jackets, thermal layers. All this stuff is going to be coming down the line. So yeah, if anyone wants to follow us, and we're mostly on Instagram. It's like crew CRU_clothing_. That's our Instagram.
Okay. All right. That's cool. Yeah, I definitely gonna check that out. Well, if people wanted to reach out or follow you, what's the best way to do that?
At soundspeed.ie is our Instagram. We have a website, but I don't know who uses them at all, really, at all. So it's www.soundspeed.ie, and then at soundspeed.ie for Instagram, and then the Crew Clothing, crewclothing.com, or CRU_clothing_ on Instagram. And we are going to be running some nice competitions now for some full crew kit. So, like, you know, if you like and share, you might win jackets for your full crew. You know, 4-man sound team might be all kitted out. So it's definitely one worth entering anyway.
Cool. All right. Well, that's a wrap for Rob Moore. And thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to say thanks to everyone for listening. If you have questions, send an email to locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. The Location Sound Podcast is part of the Audio Podcast Alliance, featuring a hand-picked selection of the very best podcasts about sound. Be sure to hear the latest episodes from our friends in the community at audiopodcast.org. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.